Congressman Shreve from Indiana.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So we're holding this hearing today, recognizing that the elections are at the end of the month, and Honduras has held democratic elections for 45 years now. But the country continues to struggle with authoritarian governance, leaving these democratic institutions fragile. We see ominous signs. The current AG, Joel Zelaya, is prosecuting the Electoral Justice Tribunal magistrates who have to certify this election at the end of this month, issued formal charges against the Honduran Supreme Court, ruled that the magistrates have constitutional immunity. It's a case of electoral misconduct, actions reminiscent of the autocratic regimes of the Nicaraguan and Venezuelan governments. Thank you. Ambassador Trujillo, this may seem like an obvious question, but for my edification and for the record, are you concerned about this possibly illegal escalatory action? And what does it say about the state of democracy in Honduras over this 45-year context that we've had the opportunity to observe?
I would say the state of democracy is very, very fragile. If you look at the institutions, if you look at the weaponization of those institutions, if you look at the electoral council, the prosecution of some of the members of opposition parties, I've been to Honduras dozens of times. I spent significant time there during my time as OAS ambassador. I worked with the anti-corruption missions. I know the country relatively well. It's as fragile as I've seen it in recent times, and that's taking into account that their previous president is serving time in federal prison for drug trafficking.
Let me offer another example. The National Electoral Council Liberal Party representative Anna Paola Hall resigned after facing threats and intense political pressure from the Castro administration. Ambassador, as you know, the CNE is the independent body responsible for organizing and guaranteeing all elections in Honduras. Mr. Ambassador, what actions did our State Department take in response to the actions taken against Representative Hall by the Castro administration?
I'm not sure of exactly, I'm not a U.S. government official, so I'm not sure of exactly what actions the U.S. State Department took. I'm not sure. I believe they did have some private consultations with them, but I'm not sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that you're not presently in service, and that speaks to the merit in this subcommittee's wish to have a representative of our State Department in service with us for such a hearing today. But I appreciate that, and I don't know if any of our other witnesses have a perspective to offer on that front. And if not, I would yield back. Mr. Roig?
Congressman, I'll just offer up that, you know, on the surface, what we've seen and what I mentioned in my opening statement is the transactional nature of the Trump administration with Honduras. If the focus is mainly on deportations with 353 flights just this year alone, then that obviously sends a message to the Castro government of what our interests are. And I think ultimately weakens our leverage on issues like this around the election. And so I don't know behind the scenes what kind of discussions I might have had on specifically to your question, but again, on the surface, I think we can all see what's happening here, and that, you know, having been a State Department official, you don't want to give up that much leverage when the other side knows exactly what you're all about when it comes to the bilateral relationship.
Sir, how are the Democracy Watchers in your organization funded? You'll be on the ground in Honduras. Will you have a representative of your organization on the ground?
My organization will not be on the ground. We're not currently operating in Honduras, but my colleague here can speak to that.
Please.
Yes, sir. We are currently funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. They funded our pre-election assessment, which was bipartisan in August, and they are helping fund us for providing technical assistance to a national observation initiative that will be observing in large numbers on Election Day.
Thank you. My time's expired and I yield back.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman Shreve from the state of Indiana. Now I recognize Mr. Stanton from the state of New Mexico
Close.
for 5 minutes.
We, Arizona and New Mexico, like each other very much, but the Southwest, we got to hang together. No, it's okay.
Hey, listen, they gave me the, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm very sorry. Arizona. Sounds a little bit better than New Mexico. Thank you. Yes,
But thank you, Madam Chair, for convening this hearing. Thank you for our witnesses for being here today, particularly on very short notice. We understand that you were asked to appear before this committee in very short notice, and I associate my comments with a lot of the comments made by our chair and our ranking member about the critical importance of free, fair, democratic elections in Honduras. I also associate myself with the comments of Representative Castro. We wouldn't need a registered lobbyist before us if the Trump administration had sent their representatives, because we have some very tough questions for the Trump administration and their policy in the Western Hemisphere. And I don't diminish the importance of these critical upcoming elections in Honduras at the end of the month and the serious threats to free and fair elections, taking a page out of some of Maduro's bag of tricks, if you will, to usurp free and fair election. These matters deserve our attention. But for me, it is unfathomable that this single topic would dominate our first hearing in over half a year. We have not met as a subcommittee in more than 6 months. During that time, the Trump administration has been carrying out unchecked actions that fall squarely within the purview of the Foreign Affairs Committee and this particular committee. The president continues to halt foreign assistance, leaving the door wide open to greater PRC influence. He's threatened Brazilian officials who convicted his friend Bolsonaro of attempting a coup. He has illegally deported immigrants to El Salvador, where they were tortured, according to a recent report by Human Rights Watch. And the Foreign Affairs Committee has remained, for the most part, silent. Congress has failed to provide the American people with any meaningful debate or discussion about these consequential actions. There has been no attempt to demand justification under our Constitution. Just as my Republican colleagues have made no real attempt to check the president's abuse of tariff authority, my Republican colleagues seem to content to let him impose tariffs as high as he chooses, on any country he chooses, for any reason he chooses. Consequences for American consumers and businesses be damned. Again and again, the GOP-led Congress is missing in action on these critical issues. But nowhere is this abdication more dangerous than in Venezuela. President Trump has usurped Congress war powers. He has unilaterally declared hostilities and launched lethal attacks without congressional authorization. The administration has provided no credible rationale to Congress or the American people for these actions. The Pentagon hasn't even provided evidence that the people they've struck are narco traffickers. Congress has made importation of illegal drugs into the United States a felony offense to be prosecuted in our courts with severe criminal penalties, and American officials are already doing that work, like the women and men of the U.S. Coast Guard and the DEA. Now, though, the administration has deployed an invasion-level force in the Caribbean, 15,000 troops, a carrier strike group, a nuclear submarine, and military aircraft, the largest military buildup in the region since the Cuban Missile Crisis, for what they claim is a counter-narcotics mission. And the president has openly threatened land strikes in Venezuela, despite his own administration assuring lawmakers that there were no such plans and that they lacked legal justification. This is a stunning escalation to the brink of war in the Western Hemisphere. The president believes he can act as judge, jury, and executioner, and no one will stop him. My colleagues across the aisle have given him no reason to think otherwise. Make no mistake, Nicolas Maduro's regime is illegitimate and undemocratic, and I am constantly inspired by Maria Corina Machado and her fight to advance democracy in Venezuela. But the history of U.S. military intervention in Latin America and the Caribbean should warn us that military action may not lead to the democratic transition the Venezuelan people desire and for which they voted peacefully in 2024. These actions put U.S. soldiers at risk. They erode our relationships across the hemisphere. Already, one of our closest allies, the United Kingdom, suspended intelligence sharing with the United States over concerns with these killings. Ranking Member Meeks has introduced a war powers resolution to halt the Trump administration's unauthorized military actions, a resolution I am proud to back. The American people do not want another forever war with loosely defined goals, fought without so much as a debate. That is not what they elected us to do, and that is not what our Constitution permits. So, Madam Chair, I appreciate this hearing. It is an important matter, but I wanted to address what I consider some incredibly constitutional threats to our democracy by the actions of Venezuela. I yield back.
Honorable Representative Stanton from the state of Arizona, I very much appreciate your comments. I do agree. I think that we should send a message that regardless whether we have a representative from the State Department or not, that we are united, Democrats and Republicans, in sending a message to the Hondurans and to the armed forces in Honduras that they should preserve the integrity of the elections coming on November 30th. Don't we agree on that?
Well said.
And we also agree, as Republicans and Democrats, members of the Subcommittee of Western Hemisphere, that Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela is a threat to democracy in the Western Hemisphere. Not only that, I think that you forgot to mention that he is the head of one of the drug cartels called the Suns Cartel. Not only that, he was indicted in 2020 in a federal grand jury for drug trafficking. He stole the elections 70-30, and the legitimate president of Venezuela is hiding in a tunnel somewhere in Caracas, waiting for the United States to do what we need to do, which is to maintain this hemisphere free for fair elections and for democracy and for freedom. I think that you agree with me, don't you?
Thank you very
But
much.
I think that you missed out on saying those.
Of course, and I look forward to a hearing on that matter at our next.
And we will,
next week.
and I'm sure that you will be here. Thank you very much for your words. Now I'm going to give the opportunity to Congresswoman Kamagar Dove of California. Thank you. I yield back and give you 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thankfully, you didn't say from Texas.
Right, or from Arizona.
That would be a
That's right.
compliment if you said something.